Sound rolling.
Camera 1.
Rolling.
Camera 2. Rolling.
My name is Christopher Dunn. I'm professor and chair of the Department of Spanish and Portuguese at Tulane. And I'm also the executive director of the Brazilian Studies Association. At Tulane, I also have a joint appointment with Africana Studies, and that's how I was hired when I came to Tulane in 1996. And my research focus is Brazilian culture and literature and culture, Brazilian cultural studies, primarily focused on the 20th century and contemporary period. My research is very much interdisciplinary. I have a very keen interest in popular music and how that interacts with other spheres of cultural production in Brazil. But I have written on visual culture and even theater and film, and of course literature. I graduated from Brown University, got my PhD in May of '96, and I came to Tulane in July of '96. And I've been here ever since. So I actually go back to, I'm now kind of part of the old guard, which is, which is in some ways a wonderful thing. But that's how I arrived at Tulane. And obviously I was thrilled to come to Tulane, and the Stone Center was a part of that. I think that it was very important for me to have just things like travel funding for the summer to go down and do research and things of that nature. Having a community, getting to know immediately faculty, senior faculty from other departments, I think it's very helpful to have connections, intellectual and personal, outside of your department. And the Stone Center is obviously a place where that can happen. For me, what's always been wonderful is to have the Stone Center, and then you go right across the way and you have the Latin American Library. And having those two together, and the way that they, that they have separate identities and they do different things, but collaborate and have a synergistic kind of relationship has just been absolutely wonderful for someone, that works on the kinds of things that I work on. So one really great memory that I have that involved the Stone Center was when we hosted the biannual Congress of the Brazilian Studies Association in 2008. It required a lot of work and a lot of support from the Stone Center, as you can imagine. It was a big undertaking. So it was, I think, March 23rd or something like that. A week later, I write an email to to Tom Reese and to the people that were on the executive committee and the president of Brazza, explaining that that we had a great experience with Brazza, the conference at New Orleans and at Tulane. It was really wonderful. But unfortunately, we really overspent. We were about $20,000 in the red. And I'm sorry, but I don't know what to do about it. And Tom was like really freaked out. He was like, Chris, what is going on? Can you explain? Can you explain? And I had a colleague in my department who's a dear friend who was like, Chris, I know you're in a lot of trouble now, but whatever happens, you can count on me. And it took like a couple of days. I let it go for a while, and it kind of spun out of control. And then we were just kind of like talking about all these different scenarios of how we were going to pay this money. And finally, people figured out that I'd sent that message on April 1st. And it was just this funny kind of like April Fool's Day. And Tom, for a while, I had to convince him, no, Tom, it's a joke. Don't worry, we're fine. But that always stuck in my mind. Was like it was like this wonderful event. And then it had this kind of fun, lighthearted event, and we were not $20,000 in the red after all. I was just pulling everybody's leg. What I've really appreciated is to be part of this Tom Reese generation. And Tom, if I'm not mistaken, arrived in '98 or '99, somewhere around there. And made some really profound changes in the way the Stone Center operated. And so being a part of that, and witnessing it and seeing how the kind of support that he's given to faculty and to students and the kind of innovations that they instituted, I think were really positive. And so one of the things that Tom did and has done over the years, which has always been very interesting, is taking an approach to the field of Latin American studies in a way that is very circumspect and always thinking about what it is to do area studies, right? and that being very cognizant of the fact that there is a critique of area studies, right? And he's been always very deliberate about that. And so I think that part of that legacy, I think, is to be constantly thinking about how the disciplines interact, right, and coincide or even diverge from this enterprise that we call Latin American studies.